My name is Thomas Bellew. I'm the head of public diplomacy here at the embassy. I've been here since September 2018, and we have been running these Irish Friday clubs once every month. At the first Friday of every month, we have a speaker in who talks about their life and experience, professional and otherwise, in Germany, in Berlin mostly. But of course, with digital, we're moving a bit forward. So in our first speaker of 2021, we have our very own Dr. Nicholas O'Brien, ambassador to Germany. And he has been stationed here. He has been appointed as Ireland's ambassador to Germany since August 2019. He is a great team leader, I should say, at this point. And he is here to tell us today his own journey of how he became ambassador to Germany and what's involved, and of course his time here previously. What I would just ask is that everybody would leave their microphones on mute, and if you want to ask a question, you can put it in on the chat. Elias Ben-Mana, my colleague at the embassy, will also be monitoring to see if people have their hands up to chat or wish to come in. You can physically raise your hand like this, or you can do it digitally on the Zoom. So, Ambassador O'Brien, you're very welcome as our first speaker for 2021 on the Irish Friday Club. We are very much looking forward to what you have to say, and I'm sure that afterwards there will be a lot of people who will want to ask various questions of you. So, Ambassador, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Thomas, and thanks for the warm welcome. Listen, I'm delighted to join you this afternoon, to speak to you just about my role as Ireland's ambassador here in Germany. I suppose I'll just talk a little bit about how I ended up being here, what I do as I represent Ireland and Team Ireland here in Germany. I was born in Dublin. I spent every summer of my childhood in Wexford, as both my parents are from Wexford. I joined the civil service in 1982. All our ambassadors are career civil servants. I joined in 1982, and then I went to college by night. I studied economics and public administration. I started my career in the Central Statistics Office. I think it's fair to say I now appreciate the value and the need for statistics and their analysis. But I suppose let's just say that in the Central Statistics Office, we had a great social life. Then I worked my way up the ladder in the civil service. I studied part-time then for a master's in public management, and then I did a doctorate in governance in Queen's University, Belfast. I suppose as I went through the civil service, you know, like all of us, you gain a wealth of experience moving between departments, different jobs, meeting different people. And then I moved to the Department of Finance in 1990 under the graduate recruitment program. And here's an interesting aside. When I applied, I ticked the box for the administrative officer grade, but not the third secretary, which is the Foreign Service equivalent. At that stage, I just didn't want to work abroad. I just didn't see that as being me. In the Department of Finance, I worked on Ireland's entry into the single currency, which seems a lifetime ago at this stage. I was private secretary to the Minister of State for Finance. I looked after Ireland's contribution to the EU budget. And I started going to meetings in Brussels at this stage, and I found the work really interesting. And bear in mind, this is the same person who didn't want to work abroad a few years previously. I was fortunate enough then, I got a job in DG External Relations of the European Commission in 1999 and stayed there until 2001. I worked on relations with Southeast Asia and mainly the fallout from the Asian financial crisis. Then we have cross mobility between the civil service, and I applied for a senior position in foreign affairs in 2001 and was successful. Then I returned to Dublin in 2001, where I held the role of Director of Africa Unit from 2001 until 2004. And it was a busy time because we had a seat on the UN Security Council, and we also held the rotating presidency of the EU. So that meant chairing, for example, the Africa Working Group, which works on the EU's policy towards African countries. Then 2004, I was posted to Shanghai as Ireland's Consul General. And that was a fascinating time. The economy was booming in Europe, in China, and Shanghai is very much an economic city. So that was fascinating. Irish companies investing in China. It was a really interesting time there. And then at the end of my stint in Shanghai, I was posted to Berlin as deputy ambassador. And just by the way, I learned my German during my last year in China, which was an interesting experience. I returned to Dublin then in 2011. I'd been away for some years, and it was time to go home. And I suppose I came back to a very different Dublin that I left. I left in 2004. The economy was on fire. You know, it was the height of the Celtic Tiger. 2011, we were in the middle of an EU IMF program. When I was coming back, I had a conversation with the then Secretary General about where I was going to work. And he said the Minister for Finance wanted someone seconded to his department as a diplomatic advisor to re-energize our engagement in Europe. And so I was appointed to that position, which I served there until 2014. Probably fair to say my career has been between the Departments of Foreign Affairs and Finance. But to be honest, I had mixed feelings about going back to finance because I'd come from there to foreign affairs and very much made foreign affairs my home. But it turned out to be a great job. Those kind of jobs have really developed. And today, a secondment to this role in the Department of Finance is highly valued, such as the strength of the link of the two departments. And I think virtually all of us who have served in that job ended up being promoted coming out of it. So following that, I was promoted then to the position of Director General and Assistant Secretary General for EU and International Affairs in the Department of Finance. And I worked at that from 2014 until 2019. It was a fascinating time. It was the ongoing crisis was still going on, very much the depths of the Greek crisis, how we were going to rebuild the financial architecture in Europe. I attended the monthly meetings of EU finance ministers with Minister Noonan and then with Minister Donoghue, meeting in two formations, Euro area ministers and then all 28 and then 27 EU ministers. And then that brings me up then to my appointment as ambassador to Germany in August 2019. I think it's fair to say, and anyone who served in a position like this, it's a rare privilege, both personally and professionally. It's a great job, and I certainly don't take it for granted. I suppose just the outset, just to say, it's in terms of Berlin and the operation here, very much leader of the team, but without the team, as in with any organization, nothing really happens. And you can see that in terms of the output and the energy and the vibrancy of the team. Then you might kind of say, all right, you came back to Berlin 8 years later. What was it like coming back? I suppose for one thing, I maintained a keen interest in Germany, both politically and economically, because to me anyway, Germany is very much the heart of the European political engine. The German-Franco alliance is very much key to European integration, but what happens in Berlin has a key bearing on this. So I stayed very much in contact, and I suppose my work in Brussels, I was constantly in contact with German officials. As diplomatic advisor to the Minister for Finance, it was a very tough time, and I was often in Germany in terms of we had business to do then. We had to make progress in several areas, which we did. The promissory note, how we exited the EU IMF program, where we're going in terms of future architecture in Europe. I suppose just coming back and just looking around the city, some things have changed, some haven't. I suppose the positives, Germans, I still find them very receptive and very warm to Ireland, particularly Irish culture. And thankfully, this goes at both the level of, I suppose, the ordinary German person in the street and then within officialdom as well. One thing that has changed, though, here in Berlin is property prices, of course, which you'll all know better. And now it's probably fair to say it's more closely aligned with most European large capital cities. For me, Berlin is a great city to live in. There are forests, there's lakes everywhere. And Germany, too, is such a beautiful country. So much to offer. You just get out around the country, Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, over into Black Forest, wherever you want to go. There's so much on offer in Germany. Another thing which has changed since I was here the last time, of course, is the size of the embassy team and the size of the overall team Ireland in Germany. I actually moved the embassy in 2010 from where we were down near Checkpoint Charlie up to our present home in Jägerstrasse. And I remember when we moved, we had a real problem in that we just hadn't got enough people to fill the rooms. But, you know, you took the whole floor or you took nothing. So we took it. But now we've exactly the opposite problem. We've a space challenge, trying to find enough space for everybody. Looking back, I suppose, since we opened, our first official presence here in Berlin was in 1921, April 1921. Nancy Wisepower arrived here and she set up the Irish Propaganda Office. And I still think it's a great name, the Irish Propaganda Office. There was recognition in Dublin, even at that stage, of the value and the strength which had to be in an Ireland-German relationship for us to make headway as an independent sovereign nation. And that bilateral relationship then was substantially strengthened when we opened in September 29. The embassy itself was opened in Berlin. And Daniel Binchy was appointed the first envoy extraordinaire and minister plenipotentiary to Germany. And then it's just worth noting as well that Germany opened their embassy in Dublin the following year in 1930. So it's 91 years since then. The embassy has moved locations a number of times. We've been from Berlin originally, to Bonn, back to Berlin, and we had a few temporary stops along the way around the period, the end of the war. Just say the original embassy site here in Berlin, which was destroyed in 1943, it's actually now part of Berlin Zoo. So the embassy team has grown, especially in recent years, and we've expanded our presence by opening a career consulate general in Frankfurt. We have 25 staff in the embassy. We've posted diplomats and we've staff locally recruited. The consulate general in Frankfurt has 4 staff. And then I suppose just given the strength of the relationship and the economic relationship in particular between both countries, the state agencies, Enterprise Ireland and Board Via, the food promotion agency, have offices in Dusseldorf. Tourism Ireland and the IDA, the Inward Investment Agency, have offices in Frankfurt. And Enterprise Ireland in 2019, the end of 2019, opened a second office in Munich. We have 4 honorary consulates here in Germany, in Hamburg, Cologne, Stuttgart and Munich. And then, like, this is a big operation, but you know, I think you can take it and be rest assured the entire team across all the locations is dedicated to promotion of Ireland in Germany, whether that's protecting our interests or advancing our values. So then you might say, like, what's my day like? What's my work like? Thankfully, no 2 days are the same. My work is totally varied, and I suppose that's why I love it. I could be meeting with Bundestag members, given the importance of the Bundestag in the German political system, senior officials in the ministries, speaking to some of the Bundestag committees. We might have Irish ministers or members of the Oireachtas or senior officials visiting. I'd be accompanying them. It might be talking with German officials, with think tanks. The think tanks, as you know, are very important. Education institutions, as we seek to deepen relations. And we have several centres of Irish studies around Germany. Cultural organisations, schools. I might be, you know, in the morning out in the Messe in Berlin, or perhaps down at the Frankfurt Book Fair or something, you know, so in different locations around the country. Cologne, Anuga, these kind of very large festivals, which are really important to Irish exhibitors. Maybe a working lunch with a regional minister, maybe then in the afternoon with a group of school children, college students wanting to learn more about Ireland. And then maybe then in the evening, might be hosting a dinner for a visiting delegation, or key business contacts here in Germany. And as I said, no 2 days are the same, and that's the beauty of it. You might say that sounds a bit exaggerated, like, you know, you can't be doing that every day, and of course that's not every day. There's the regular and the very ordinary as well. I also have the administrative tasks, signing off on the monthly accounts, chasing people if the heating is not working. A big part of my work, though, is getting out around Germany because of the 16 Länder, the importance of those. I'll come on to that in 1 second. But just to say that, like, I suppose, unfortunately, at the moment, you know, I'm a master of Zoom and WebEx like everyone else, although not quite as good as knowing when to push the buttons and not. But I suppose I just long for the day when I can get out and travel within Germany again and push the advantages of Ireland to everyone who will listen. And as I said, traveling within Germany, it's a major part of the job. I think, as anyone here in Germany knows, the 16 Bundesländer are very powerful. They have responsibility for the vast majority of issues which affect daily life here in Germany: the economy, health, schooling, local policing. I travel to every state and to meet with the minister president, various ministers, the Europe minister, economic ministers, finance ministers, and key Irish interests, including cultural and sporting organisations. And I think that's one of the things that I really miss, just getting out and meeting Irish people here in Germany. I had a certain amount for the first 6 months, but unfortunately it all came to a grinding halt last March. And just in that regard, I want to acknowledge all the community, the business organisations, the IBN, the pub organisations, the cultural, the sporting organisations, GAA, Cumulú-Closcale, Cunra na Gaeilge, and the other organisations, and all of the Irish societies, Munich Irish Network. And I know this is dangerous calling organisations that, and I'm sorry if I don't cover them all. But these organisations and societies really play an important role in supporting the community and in promoting Irish culture. There's only so much the embassy can do. You're the people on the ground who do this really valuable work. And you provide a great service. And just to say thank you and keep up the work. It's really important to the Irish community, particularly at this time. Just to give you a flavour, I suppose, in terms of kind of the work of an embassy. And in traditional diplomacy, we often think of three distinct strands of our work: political, economic, and cultural. And I've touched on the political a little bit, and that's engaging. For me, that's engaging with the ministries at a senior level, state secretary level. It's about advancing our agenda and pushing our interests, and be that Brexit, taxation, or a host of other issues that are on the table in Europe. Bear in mind that over 80% of Irish legislation comes from Brussels, comes from the European Union. And it's a fabulous experience sitting in the room there in Brussels, being involved in the legislative process. And for me, anyway, it's a real expression of our sovereignty. And I think, anyway, we're a better and a much stronger country for that. So therefore, it's really important that we understand German positions on what's going on in Brussels, that if we have important issues we need to protect or to advance, that we make the points here in Berlin so that they give instructions to their delegates in Brussels. It also means engaging with the Bundestag because of the power of the Bundestag and its committees. We have a structured program of engagement where we focus on the key committees, the members, and their advisors. The second strand is economic. And as I said, we're very lucky to have the first aid agencies here in Germany. I'm always available to work with them on their behalf, be it meeting key clients or attending trade fairs. And then culture is the third leg of the stool. And like, why does an embassy engage in cultural work? I suppose for me, it's about brand recognition, but it's also about promoting what we cherish and what we believe in. I'm delighted that we now have a full-time cultural officer here in place in the embassy. And some of you may have seen our recent Irish Night In 2 weeks ago, which was a major production and really well received. Just to say, no matter, sorry, and there's one other kind of, one element, of course, which I should have, that political economic culture, the people element, the Irish citizen. And you see this in our consular work, and particularly at the moment, the consular work has really ramped up. This is Irish citizens in trouble, and I keep more than a keen interest in this, because for me, serving Irish citizens here is what it's all about. We sometimes have our Irish citizens in a spot of bother, and it's about helping them through them in as much as we can. Up until now, like, there's a lot of lost passports, people in hospital, arrests, things like that. Things have become an awful lot more sensitive now, and sometimes a lot more time critical. And we were involved in kind of in COVID testing here in Germany. We're involved in kind of work around supply chains, making sure that supply chain workers can access here. We're involved in medical cases coming to Germany for specialized treatment. And we're not centrally involved. Obviously, the people are liaising with the organizations here, but our and this is to smooth the path and to make it easier and in a sense to get over any bumps on the road. I suppose I'm the front-facing element of the office, but as I said, there's a really strong team behind me, which makes it all work. And we hold regular meetings within the embassy to coordinate our approaches: political, cultural, administrative, consular, business, public diplomacy. We have all these working groups in the embassy, and we meet on a weekly or 2-weekly basis. Just to say as well, and just bear in mind, the embassy in Berlin is now one of our largest bilateral overseas missions. And that reflects our commitment to Germany, our commitment to the relationship, and the importance which Dublin places on the bilateral relationship with Germany. And that was brought out in 2018 strategy paper, Ireland and Germany, deepening and widening our footprint. I think the paper is significant in identifying a lot of the good things which the embassy conducted in recent years to the benefit of the bilateral relationship. And we also identified further elements that could be developed. I suppose these included more regular, more structured engagement at senior official level. And for example, next Tuesday, 5 state secretaries will meet 5 secretaries general of government departments in between Berlin and Dublin. And this is a whole new development, that the most senior official of 5 of these departments coming together with our counterpart in Dublin. We opened a new career consulate in Frankfurt. We a new head of cultural affairs, and then I think we've focused very clearly on a stronger outreach program across Germany, which unfortunately is on hold at the moment. For now, like everyone else, I'm mainly on a digital basis, and I suppose that those of you who follow the embassy or my Twitter account, you'll see photos of me maybe wearing a headset or sitting at a PC with a video call with members of the Bundestag, Irish studies academics, Irish community groups, or such like. It's good. It's a very good substitute, but of course it's not the real thing. And that's what I really look forward to again, is to getting out and meeting people again. Yeah, as I said, like ideally we'd love to have the physical events, but the digital is the best we can do under the circumstances. And we try to be innovative with what we can achieve with that. I suppose, when I look to the future and where we're going to be in a year and 2 years from now, I'm very clear about kind of our purpose here in Germany. It's to promote Ireland and Germany unashamedly, to continue widening and deepening our footprint right across the country. Like north, south, east, and west. Every corner of Germany has something that we can find and we can exploit. And this is something, when I'm going to the land, we always look for something for links, traditional links. And, we have some very, very, very notable links, like, for example, St. Killian in Würzburg, who was martyred in 689. Then we have Irish musicians, Turlough O'Carolan, John Field, who inspired some of Beethoven's composition. And then, of course, we have modern artists like Ray Garvey and Johnny Logan. I suppose I will unashamedly use any link that I can find in terms of creating a link, whatever Bundesland I'm in terms of saying, there's a strong link between Ireland and your state, and we want to work on this and build it. And here are the business opportunities, here are the cultural opportunities that we're looking to exploit. Just to conclude, just to say, listen, I feel incredibly privileged and lucky to be a guest here in Germany, a country and a people that have extended a very warm and embracing welcome to generations of Irish people who've come here to Germany. And we've also done likewise in Ireland. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to really thank you for joining us today. I hope what I said was of some interest to you. I'm very happy to take any questions you might have. Just before, though, we thought it might be interesting just to give you a little snippet of some of the work over the last year. It's not everything. That's the day I presented credentials in Schloss Bellevue to President Steinmeier. That's with him after presenting credentials. Credentials are letters signed by the President of Ireland to the President of Germany, saying this person whom we're sending, we have faith in him to represent our interests, and he is our representative in Germany And that's essentially what letters of credence are, which you give to the President of Germany as the head of state here. That's the same day. That's the embassy team as it then was. And it's interesting, even in a year and a half, the additions and some people have moved on. That's actually my first day in Berlin. The day I arrived, just outside the embassy. There was a conference back in Dublin, and that's all surviving ambassadors to Germany. There are 7, and if you take from second on the left, Noel Fahy, every one of those has been in Berlin. That Noel Fahy actually moved the embassy from Bonn to Berlin in 1999. That's at the Irish Night Inn. That's actually 2 weeks ago, sitting by the fire, welcoming people virtually into the house here. And that's with Minister Wojcik, the Minister President of Brandenburg. We had a great day down at the Costello farm. There's 2 brothers here in Brandenburg who have cows in the fields, 1,000 cows in the field. And listeners, those of you here in Germany know that's a rarity here in Germany. So it was a fabulous visit, and we spent a half day with the Minister President. And he was really interested because his background, of course, is agricultural science. I was down in Bonn representing the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Minister Harris, whom you'll see on the screen speaking from Dublin. That's actually the former Bundestag chamber in Bonn. And you'll see the eagle there is the exact same eagle as in the Bundestag in Berlin. That is signing an EU declaration on behalf of the minister, and that's one of the things as ambassador you're given authorization to sign on behalf of the state. That is down in the Bundestag in one of the committee rooms with Alexander Hoffmann, a member of the Bundestag. I was speaking to them about citizen engagement. They wanted to know about the Citizens' Assembly and how we managed and how we worked it in Ireland. And then that is on a Zoom call with a webinar with the Irish Exporters Association. That's in the office in the embassy. And that is with the mayor of Berlin, Michael Müller, who, as you know, there are 16 states, and the mayor of Berlin has an equivalence as a minister president. And that's with Minister Wojcik, Minister President Wojcik down in Brandenburg. That is meeting with the representative of the city of Bremen, Dr. Joachim. And this is one of the things which I do is the 16 federal states have representative offices here in Berlin to the federal government. So I meet with those as well. Normally prior to meeting, prior to traveling to the land, but we keep up an ongoing dialogue with them. And that's meeting with Dr. Speich, the representative of North Rhine-Westphalia. That is with the Federal Minister for Research, Minister Karliczek, in Osnabrück during the German presidency. And that is members of the German-Irish Parliamentary Friendship Group, who we meet on a very regular basis. There's a group of members of the Bundestag have come together, and we have an equivalent German-Irish Friendship Group in the Oireachtas at home. And that is in Berlin with Klaus Lederer, the Senator for Europe, the equivalent of the Minister for Europe here in Berlin. And that is with Minister Putrig in Hessen. She is the Minister for European Affairs. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That was with the moderator beforehand. Sorry. No, it's okay. That's with that was last December. Our own foreign minister, Minister Coveney, was here in Berlin, and that's meeting with Gunter Kriegbaum, member of the Bundestag. And that is with the Minister President of North Rhine-Westphalia, Minister President Armin Laschet, who's now leader of the CDU party. That's just meeting him when I arrived, and that's signing the Golden Book. As you know, all of the cities here in Germany have their golden book, which is it's very important and kind of very, very privileged to be asked to sign it on behalf of Ireland. That is down in Brandenburg, meeting with the Speaker of the Parliament, Professor Leitke, during the pandemic, as you can see. I think that was one of the breaks when we were able to actually meet, and that's signing the Golden Book down in Brandenburg. And that is meeting with the representative of Schleswig-Holstein, Sandra Gerken, here in Berlin. And that is meeting with the State Secretary of the Foreign Ministry, Miguel Berger, in the Auswärtiges Amt here in Berlin. And that is down in Würzburg with the president of Würzburg University and the mayor, Christian Schuchart. And that is one of the many cultural events which we do in the embassy. That's in the courtyard of the embassy. And that was opening the Ireland in Frame exhibition. So that's down at the Consulate General in Frankfurt with John Lynham on the left, Head Consul General, and Minister Donoghue, the Minister for Finance. That's in Babelplatz in Berlin with the Minister for Finance. And that's it. Great. Listen, I'm very happy to take any questions people might have.
Thank you, Ambassador. That has been very informative, both as well. Even though I work with you, it's been very informative for myself as well. It's good to know where you came from and that you are holidaying in Wexford every year. Not somewhere I've been to much, but it is very scenic in itself. I'm sure we have some questions from the audience. If anybody wants to put up their hand digitally or to wave at the camera to ask a question, or if you just want to unmute your microphone and come in, please. I think Marguerite, you want to ask a question? If you want to unmute there and come ahead, please.
Hi. Well, it was really informative and highly interesting. Thank you very, very much. Also, I just want to commend you on doing a lot of good action for the cultural scene by bringing in Candace. I think it was a fantastic move, and there's really things happening, and it's very exciting to see what we have out there. I just would actually like to extend an invitation, as I will be going to take over the ballet director position in Niedersachsen in Osnabrück, which you already, I've seen, have been there, but it's a pretty city. And I hope that you'll pencil into your diary the 30th of October. That is the first premiere of my new term in Osnabrück. And I would be so thrilled to have our Irish ambassador there. So please keep that free. And hopefully we'll be corona free and able to celebrate that together. Thank you.
Not at all. Listen, Marguerite, thanks very much, and thanks for the kind words, and also for all you do in terms of kind of Irish culture and the promotion of Irish culture here in Germany. I will say, listen, I would love to be there, and I will say 90%. My only reservation is my mother's birthday around that time. So I just, depending on travel and that, but if I'm here in Germany, I will absolutely be there. You can take it. And Osnabrück is a beautiful city, and congratulations on the appointment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, thank you for raising your question there. Would you like to unmute and voice your question, please?
Sure. Thanks so much there, Thomas. Yeah, just a bit of background on the way the political system in Ireland works. I was asking, while ministers change under various political regimes and parties in Ireland, would the first, second, third, etc., secretaries or deputies remain in place to maintain continuity with those within those departments? Thanks.
Yeah. After independence in 1922, we inherited, we took over the British administrative system, and we've continued in that tradition. It's called the Trevelyan tradition, and it's very much based on an independent civil service. And it would be, let's just say, comparing systems, it would be remarkably different to the American system. When a government changes, everybody in the department remains, from Secretary General, permanent head of a government department. You have a Secretary General, then below that you have Assistant Secretaries General, and then all the way down, Principal Officers, Assistant Principals, all the way down. On the Foreign Service, you have slightly different grades. But everybody remains in place. But there's another side, there's a flip side of this. Officials have to be in a position to serve any government. It doesn't matter what political party it comes from. We serve the government and the state regardless of who's in power. Civil servants by law are forbidden to join political parties, to be politically active, except the very lowest grade. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense at all. Clerical officers are allowed to be involved in a political sense, but anything above that, and that's done to protect the civil service and the political system, because the view is, and I've interacted with ministers over the years, you go down and you give your policy advice based on what you determine to be the best way forward. And it's up to the minister of the day to accept or not that advice. And because the minister takes political responsibility, he or she is elected, not the civil servants. So that's why ultimately policy always belongs to the minister and the government of the day. So then at the top of a department, you have the minister, the political head, who is ultimately, he or she is the minister who exerts all authority. And then there would be, perhaps not always, but mainly there'd be one or two ministers of state to assist him, and they would have political advisors. But the department, the whole department remains intact with the change of administration, and that also goes for our foreign service. Ambassadors don't change; nobody changes based on a change in government, and that's, I suppose, that's the very foundation of our system.
Yeah. Thanks so much. That's really interesting because, as you say, it's so different from the American system, and I think it's a better system the way you and the British do it. That kind of led me to another question about how the ambassadors are then appointed, because I'm so used to, with the new presidential regime in the States, a new ambassador, so we don't know who's going to arrive in Ireland. So how would you get your ambassadorship then? Would it be kind of next in line, or how would the ambassadors be appointed through the Irish government or the civil service?
Yeah, well, it's very much. I suppose it's still kind of a little bit shrouded in mystery, because it's a government decision, and government decisions are never discussed outside the room. But yeah, it's up to the head of the foreign ministry and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They actually work on a list, and then they ask government's approval then to appoint these people. But yeah, it's very much it's career civil servants who, I suppose, who tick the box, who have the required skill set for wherever somebody's being appointed. Like, for example, if you're appointing somebody in Paris or Berlin, you're talking about someone who has the language. If you're appointing with someone in Tanzania or Zambia, you're looking for someone who has a certain expertise in overseas development programs, because that's very much their core business. So it's a case of matching people into the different slots. But
just wondering what the average length of stay would be in those cases.
I think the way it's put to us is that the normal expectation is 4 years, and then you rotate elsewhere or rotate back home.
Okay, thank you, Carol, and thank you, Ambassador. We've got a couple more questions there. We've got Sive and then Rafaela. So Sive, if you'd like to unmute and come in, and
Thanks a million, Thomas.
post your question. Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas. Thank you very much for your talk. It was really interesting. What I found really interesting also was when you showed the picture of your team, it's a really large team, obviously, which you highlighted. How have you been able to kind of manage the onboarding and kind of letting people kind of move to next opportunities within the civil service, like their foreign affairs, during this period? I guess it's a challenge for everyone, and just interested to see how you can manage that in the embassy.
I suppose we were compared to the situation in Ireland, the lockdown wasn't quite as severe here. So it's probably only since November that it's been really, really restrictive. Up until then, we were able to bring new people on board. It is a challenge bringing new people on board in this kind of environment, absolutely, because we moved through different phases. We split into 3 teams at the beginning. We kept one team in reserve who had full home working facilities. At that stage, everybody didn't. Everybody does now. We kept them in reserve on the basis that, given the way things were going, someone was bound to get sick in one of the other 2 teams, and that 3rd team could step in and replace them. And then the other 2 teams operated every 2nd day. Certain work has to go on, pandemic or not. Consular work has to go on. Irish citizens needing assistance, if they pick up the phone, we have to respond to that. There's great interest in Dublin and what's happening in Germany, how they're handling the pandemic. So we have to continue to do reporting on that. So this kind of work had to go on. Then we moved through different phases. We're down now at the moment. We brought some people back and more people back into the office then over the summer. So I suppose that was a little bit easier in terms of kind of new people starting. And then we're back to very restrictive numbers at the moment, where we're only talking about a maximum of 4 being in any one day now. You asked about promotion and things like that. Promotion is certainly for diplomats posted abroad. Promotion is very much controlled centrally in Dublin. There are competitions, and they're actually going on at the moment. There's promotion competitions, and anybody in the department can apply for these, and it's all done over Zoom. They ran. There's 2 competitions just finished, and there's another one going on at the moment. This is right across the department. And then for people within the embassy, I suppose as positions come up, they're advertised publicly. That's the way we are. But it's not easy onboarding new people. I fully accept that, and it's and there's a bit of frustration as well in terms of they're not able to work full time. We're not able to have them in full time. Yeah, it's not ideal. We have regular team meetings though. Like there's at any one week, I think there's four teams meeting over Zoom on different days of the week. It's kind of it's the best we have, but
thank you. That's really informative. I have another actually follow-up question, which kind of I just was thinking about when you were answering regarding the calls. How do you ensure that the communications are still, let's say, secure? I guess in diplomacy, it's very important that people know that they can trust who they're talking to and which channel now, obviously, they're talking on if it's not face-to-face. Is there some kind of special pandemic type communications that you guys have, or are you just using what you always used?
We have our own internal IT system, and there's both a video conferencing and a phone system with built into the computers. Yeah. I think it's what we call a closed circuit or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'd like to think at least that everything is very secure. And with that, Raffaella, you have your hand up. You'd like to pose a question as well. If you'd like to unmute, come forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed your presentation, especially the pictures you have been showing, and I thought it must be a really nice job on various occasions to represent your home country into a foreign country. So that was really nice pictures. I have one thing came up in my mind, which is the Brexit. Could you maybe just say very briefly something, how your feelings are and how is it going on and what you're suffering from? And because this is obviously quite a difficult thing to overcome.
Yeah, I think we've been fairly clear, saying from the outset that this is not something which we wanted, but it's a British sovereign choice, and they had a referendum and they made their choice, so therefore we have to accept it. I think my own view, and I think it's a view shared generally kind of in Ireland, is that the European Union is poorer for the loss of any member state, and particularly the loss of a member state the size of the UK. We have had to adapt, and it has posed remarkable problems. And we had two objectives throughout the process: to protect the peace process in Northern Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement, and then to protect the single market. And it's I suppose it was a challenge to achieve both of those, and the solidarity among the EU member states was remarkable. And I want to pay particular tribute to the German host government here in terms of the way they supported not only Ireland, but they supported the EU and what it stands for, and they promoted the protection of the EU, and you know, of course, the negotiations, like any negotiations, were difficult, but there was an agreement reached last December on Christmas Eve. And for us now, it's about implementing that. You know, we obviously want as close a relationship as possible with the UK, but we do so within a framework of being a member of the European Union and a member who's deeply committed to the European Union and to our future into the European Union. As I said earlier, you know, for me anyway, I think it's when I look back on history, I think it's been a remarkably positive experience for Ireland being in the EU, not only economically but politically and socially as well. So I think it's about working within that. We were very clear throughout the process. We never engaged in bilateral negotiations. We engaged as one of the 27, because obviously there's much greater solidarity and strength working as part of the 27.
All right, thank you very much, and I wish you thumbs up for good co-working for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
I see some more hands up. Did I see Jody? Was your hand up there? Did you want to ask a question, or was it answered already? And I saw another hand up there.
Aidan, I think Aidan Boyle.
Aidan, do you want to come in?
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I would like to continue just a question on the Brexit issue. And has the embassy, or indeed its extended network, detected any huge increase from Irish companies in Ireland turning their attention more towards the mainland now that they face perhaps greater barriers towards the UK? So have you detected any new interest coming from Ireland towards Germany? And also my sort of a second question would be, can the Irish community perhaps in some way facilitate this? I can imagine that perhaps the British Embassy or the British Chamber of Commerce is perhaps inundated with English companies wanting to move into mainland Europe, perhaps in Germany or other locations. So what has the embassy detected at this level?
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Aidan. It's just to say at the outset, it's hard to be definitive. We will need trade statistics, which will only come later, to be very clear about. But anecdotally, there would seem to be an increase in trade. trade has held up remarkably well despite the pandemic, which is interesting. And there's been certainly an increase. And this is only talking with some of the agencies here. Anecdotally, on the food side in particular, it's very strong. And this may well be a reaction to Brexit, because one of the areas most tightly controlled, the EU-UK agreement is no tariffs and no quotas. But it does not abolish, it does not give the UK access to the same market. So therefore, food is a really tightly controlled product. In my last job, when we were doing our first analysis of the outcome of the Brexit, for example, this is only anecdotal, one of the things we discovered very quickly is cheddar cheese. Cheddar cheese was going to have a massive problem. It seems cheddar cheese is exported. Irish people eat cheddar cheese and British people. And beyond that, people don't really eat cheddar cheese. So, but in fairness, the companies at home adapted. And they're looking at other cheese products now. I think the foodstuffs, you are seeing more and more of this, I think, coming directly to the mainland. If you look at the new shipping routes that have opened, you know, to Zeebrugge, to new routes like, you know, from Dublin to the Havre, one into the Netherlands. I can't remember which port it's going into. But these are new routes, and that's reflecting the reality. I think the ferries are reflecting what trade wants. And trade is saying they want quick and easy access into their continental markets. It made sense to go to land bridge before. You probably cut about 6 hours of your travel, and for time sensitive products, for example, fish, transporting fish is very time sensitive. So if you can gain 6 hours by going across the land bridge through the UK, of course you would. If there's a fear that you're going to get caught up somewhere along the road, or when you arrive, you know, in Calais or whatever, you're not going to take the chance with fish. So therefore, you would probably head for Dublin Port or Rosslare and take a ferry direct. So I think, yeah, overall, I think it's fair to say there probably is an increase. Very hard to know exactly how much, because you have the pandemic built into this as well. So trying to disaggregate this I think will only come later, maybe in a year or two. We'll probably only have a very clear picture. In terms of what we do, our main agency in terms of facilitating trade is Enterprise Ireland, and they're remarkably busy with inquiries, with people wanting to do business here, and it is this kind of reflective in terms of people perhaps saying, I've always traded with companies in Manchester and Liverpool, and yes, maybe I'll keep doing that, but I'm going to look as well to, like, you know, maybe the product I'm making is wanted in Essen or, you know, Osnabrück or wherever, or Lille or Paris. So therefore, they will actually, I think they will look to the mainland in terms of France, Germany. If you look at it geographically, France, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Netherlands are all within very easy reach. But also as well, you have ferries now to Spain as well, from Rosslare or Cork to Spain, or Rosslare, I think it's Cork, Santander. So yeah, this is people reacting. And it was interesting to watch the shift in the ferries in January. It happened straight away. So I think that's reflective. But Enterprise Ireland is available, and then we have the Irish Business Network here in Germany. But I think for exporters, and this comes very, very clearly within the remit of Enterprise Ireland, their job is there to facilitate exporters.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time, and we could probably talk all day, but I know that people will probably need to get back to different things. But we've a few questions. We have one from Jim Huggard, and then we have Carol and Alex. Jim, do you want to come in and pose your question? Or you've already typed it in the chat. I can pose it to the ambassador if you wish. Well, okay. Well, Jim, if you're... Jim has posed the question, Ambassador, how is your Irish? And number two, will German take over as the European Union's lingua franca?
Okay. Ja, is Feder Lord Gelge, aber Aber nicht so fließend, yeah. Yeah, listen, it's a long time since I used Irish. I have it, but I would certainly have to brush up on it. The couple focal is fine. But but of course, this, you know, we all learned it in school, and we can brush up on it if we have to. Will German become the lingua franca? I'm not convinced. What struck me in when I was posted in China was business people from all across Europe speaking English. You know, some member states very jealously protect their language, and even they were speaking English. So I think English is probably the lingua franca internationally, certainly the business language. Within the world of diplomacy, I suppose we need a slightly broader array of languages. For example, we have a whole cadre of Spanish speakers now simply because of not only Spain but all of South America, and then we have Francophone countries as well. And German, interestingly, is we have a slight challenge with German speakers, and it's something we're working on. But you know, in a sense, we should have more, because we have 3 German-speaking missions: Bern, Vienna, and Berlin. So I would, yeah, it's hard to be sure, Jim. But like, for example, let me give you an example. When I was on that group preparing the meeting of finance ministers, the Euro group, we always spoke in English. Despite the fact myself, Malta, we were probably the only native English speakers. And then when the EU ambassadors when the ambassadors to the European Union meet in Brussels, they operate in English, French, and German. So yeah, it's certainly one of the core languages. But
yeah, sorry for not switching on my video. I'm having trouble doing it on my phone today. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're fine. Thanks.
Okay, well, Gora Mila Mahagat Agus Vielen Dank. So we have 2 more questions. If we could ask Alex and then Carol to come in. Alex, if you'd like to switch on your mic and ask the question, thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, like, what were the main skills that you kind of developed over your career that have really lent like themselves to your position as ambassador and like been the most important? And also, what kind of general advice would you give to young people who want to go into a career in diplomacy?
Okay. Main skills developed. I could give you the competency framework. We operate when we're recruiting these competency frameworks, but you know, it's a broad range of skills. For me, anyway, I think anyway, relationships is key in terms of getting things done, and not only in diplomacy, in the business world, in any world. In terms of if you have a good product to sell and you have a decent relationship, you know, you should be able to manage it. In terms of the skill set, I suppose, which I've developed, I've worked on the policy side, both in foreign affairs and finance, quite heavily. And that's kind of thinking about where we want to go, where we want to be, like in 3-5 years' time as a country. What do we need to do to get there in the particular area that I'm working? And yes, you need the policies, I suppose the policy side, but then the interpersonal is a big area that I've kind of worked on, and trust is a big factor for any civil servant and any diplomat posted abroad. People have to have trust that what you're saying, not only is true, but also they can deliver. And I've seen this over the years dealing with the political system in particular, that you have to develop a relationship of trust with a minister, that he or she has to be able to have a belief that what you say is worth listening to and is solid advice. In terms of general advice, firstly, in terms of being a diplomat, we up until now it used to be just third secretary recruitment, which is I suppose the entry level for a diplomat abroad. But we now recruit at all levels, all the way up. From across the civil service, and sometimes openly as well. in order to apply for these, you have to be a graduate. So, but what kind of degrees? There's no particular kind of hard and fast rule. So, for example, in Germany, the number of diplomats and people in the finance ministry who are lawyers is astonishing. I think everybody must study German and must study law in Germany. But I think in Ireland we've a remarkable cross section. The Secretary General, the department head of our department, actually studied archaeology. That gives you an idea. My own background is economics. We have quite a number of people who would have studied, you know, in former times they might have studied the classics, not so much now. It might be kind of politics or international relations and languages. Don't underestimate languages, because we're in the market for language, for people with languages now. And we do actually say in the recruitment process that credit is given for languages, because we have recognized more and more that, like, people learning languages is fine, but we really need to develop cadres of different language skill sets. French, Spanish, German being the obvious, but there are others as well. Mandarin as well is another kind of stream which we have, and you know, we also have some Japanese speakers. But I think languages is becoming more important than it was certainly 10, 20 years ago.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I think we have time perhaps for one, maybe two more questions. And Carol, if you'd like to come in there.
Yes, thank you. Just in the area of languages, Ambassador, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit of how you learned your German your last year in Shanghai, and also how would you rate Berlin to live in? Is it expensive, comparing it to other German cities? Because I just went there the year before last, having kind of traveled in more the storybook kind of German cities, and I found Berlin very different. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about those two things. Thanks.
Thanks, Carol. How I learned my German. I was asked that normally we just do postings about 6 months in advance. I was asked about a little over a year in advance if I would come to Berlin in the number 2 position, and if so, would I learn German? So that was essentially it. So I was about trying to find a good German teacher, which I did. I found a chap from Hamburg. So I used to go off there at 8 in the morning to learn my German, and but that was when I was doing the day job. So it had its challenges. In Berlin, expensive? Oh, I don't. It's as expensive as you want it to be. It's probably it's probably not at the very top end in terms of European cities. But that being said, it depends. There's a real challenge around housing here as well. And that's reflected in the rent levels, and now there are controls in place. It depends what part of Berlin you're in as well. If you go over, like to parts, I'm living out in Grunewald here, or over in Prenzlauer Berg, you'll pay handsomely for a cup of coffee in certain places, and then you'll find very ordinary places as well.
Thank you. Carol, your hand is still up. Do you want to ask another question, or is that it? Okay. Ambassador, if we still have a bit of time, one of our colleagues, Elias, whom you know, would like to pose a question, if that's okay with yourself.
Yeah, Elias, go ahead. Yeah.
So hello, everyone. My name is Elias Bemna, and I work here for the Irish Embassy in Berlin. And first of all, thank you very much for this very informative talk, Ambassador. And if it's okay with you, I would like to come back to your time in Shanghai as well. And I was wondering how institutions in Shanghai and the general public in Shanghai were approaching the topic of Irish culture, because I remember that you said that embassy work includes political, economic, and cultural work. And I was wondering what your impression was in terms of how the Chinese public approaches Irish culture and what kind of aspects they found particularly interesting.
Okay, thanks, Elias, and thanks for organizing this morning. Shortly after I arrived, it's what I was saying earlier. You look for things to hang your story on, and the Chinese hadn't had any Nobel laureate for literature, whereas we had 4. And I discovered fairly quickly they were interested in this, and they you know, they have fabulous writers, but just they haven't had any to date. So therefore, it was about marrying different things together. George Bernard Shaw visited Shanghai just for a day, and he was a Nobel laureate, and he was kind of seen as some of his writings perhaps had been sympathetic, and certainly that was certainly the way they were interpreted in China. So it was things like, you know, a George Bernard Shaw essay competition in Fudan University, which is the #1 university in Shanghai. So it's about using culture in areas like that. And then, you know, river dance was a really big hit when it went to China. So we did our own version of it in Shanghai, starting at St. Patrick's Day Parade, which had its challenges trying to get a permit for that, but we managed to do it. But then it was about kind of lots of children doing kind of river dance, you know, style dancing, on the main shopping street in Shanghai. And why do you do this? It's about visibility, because if you look at a place like China, for starters, the Chinese map of the world is different than ours. Understandably, the Chinese have China at the center of the world, and everybody else is around it. So where's Ireland? Ireland's off up in the top left-hand corner, Ireland and Iceland. So therefore, you have a problem with brand recognition straight away. So therefore, what is Ireland? Where's Ireland? You're from Ireland. Iceland? No, Ireland. So therefore, it's about getting yourself known. So therefore, you find things, and culture is one great way of doing this. And that was just one example we did in terms of kind of, you know, exploiting what we have. You know, we have this fabulous literature heritage. So therefore, it's using that to identify us as a nation. And that's when we try to do that a little bit in Germany as well. We obviously don't have anything like, you know, in Germany, like the brand recognition issue we would say, for example, in faraway countries. So hope that covers it.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you everybody for your questions. I think at this stage we should probably wrap up, unless anybody has one last particular pressing question that they'd like to put. But otherwise, we should let you get back to your lunches or whatever it is you're doing for the rest of the day. And we thank you very much for having joined us. It was very informative for myself as well. And sorry, we have one question from William before we go. William, would you like to unmute and just come in?
Okay, sorry, I missed the beginning of the presentation, but I was just wondering, how does the embassy know how many Irish citizens are actually living in Germany, and how do you keep in contact with them? I ask in part because I've actually lived in Germany for probably on and off for 20 years, but I work mainly in Switzerland. So I've had a lot more contact with the embassy in Bern, which is much closer to where I live than Berlin. But I have never had any contact, I think, with the Berlin embassy previously.
Yeah, thanks very much, William. And a really good question, and one we struggle with as well. What are you talking about? You're probably talking about 18 to 20,000. And we work those numbers of the people who have registered with the local Amt. So like it's people who have an Anmeldung. That doesn't reflect the full numbers at all. And we know that. But it's the closest we can get in terms of numbers. We've also seen kind of a geographic shift in the Irish community. If you go back 15, 20 years ago, go back even further, and for example, Munich was the center of the Irish community here in Germany. Why was that? There were simple facts. There were direct flights. Students went to Munich, worked in factories, picked grapes, did whatever, and then some of them went over around, to Frankfurt, up around the areas, up around there. But Munich very much kind of was where Irish people went to. That shifted, with workers coming in from Eastern Europe and I'm sorry, I'm not saying this negatively at all, but like in a sense, they slotted into those jobs, so therefore there maybe wasn't the same jobs market there for summer university students. And then you know, there are kind of clear pockets of the Irish community now. There's Munich, you know, Stuttgart, are all along the western corridor down of the country, like, you know, Frankfurt, Cologne, Hamburg, Hessen, and Berlin. Berlin has now become a big centre of the Irish community. It's probably about 4,000 in Berlin. Probably a younger community than some of the more established communities around Germany, but it's interesting to watch that change.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it, Ambassador. And there's a message just coming in there saying that you are more than welcome in München when all of this is over, and that came in from Joanne Gavin. Greetings, Joanne. So, Ambassador, thank you very much for being the first speaker of our Irish Friday Club for 2021. Like I said already, it was very informative, and it was enlightening for myself as well. And thank you, and thank you all participants for the questions that were put and for your interest in today's event. Thank you.
Thanks very much for such positive engagement, and stay safe. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.